There's a million and one things you're going to hear from Christians, from pastors, and even read in the Bible about what it means to be a godly man. But I'm going to try and kind of bring it all together and give you a kind of essence that goes with what being a godly man is. And by the way, the type of man that as a woman you should look for. What is a marker of a true man who's being formed in the image of Christ? That should be the backbone of what you look for. The properties that make steel a protective material, something that we might make a bulletproof door out of, is the same thing that makes steel something that kills people, something that's damaging. The same thing that makes it protective in its properties is the same thing that makes it deadly. The same reason we use metal for bullets is the same reason we use metal for bulletproof things. It's hard. It has very high capabilities for both protection and for damage. If you took away the properties of metal because of how vicious metal bullets are and how they kill people, then you also would take away all the protective properties of metal that we would use to defend the innocent from those who are bloodthirsty. In the same way, you really don't want to rid men of what makes them men, of what gives them strength and power. Because it's not just physical strength and power, by the way. It's not just big, broad shoulders. It's also an emotional endurance. It's also a mental endurance, a mental capability to do hard things and just carry on and just compartmentalize it. But that has to be whipped into shape, that has to be yielded and surrendered to God, because that same strength is oftentimes used against women, against children, against those that should be under our protection. Guys, have you ever been in an argument with your girl and you'll say something that you just think was simple, to the point, and it was just exactly what you meant and what you believe to be true? You gave an honest assessment of the situation. You drew on your intuition of what you know about life and about your experience on planet Earth. But because of the way you said it, and maybe what you actually said, your woman feels like, she might be a good woman, she might be a mature woman, but she feels as though what you said was a weapon fashioned against her, and that actually it was highly offensive, and she now feels vulnerable because of what you said. If you've ever been the guy or the girl in this situation, it's very clear that men have a high capacity for damage. Emotional, spiritual, physical, mental, all of that. But what I've learned, that capacity for strength and endurance, like metal, that can either protect or can destroy. What I've learned is, though, the more spiritually mature you are and the more yielded you are to Christ, the more you're inclined to use that strength and enduring quality that God gives men to protect and not to crush or destroy. It's pretty much a default, natural, human, carnal reaction to see the strength and endurance that we've been given by God, both physical, mental, and emotional, and use it to get our own way, to get our own will. That's what really rich men do. That's what kings of old have always done. That's what emperors do. That's what politicians do. That's what wife beaters do. That's what womanizers and pimps do. And not just physically, by the way, they use emotional manipulation. They use their words, they use their status, they use their money, they use their power. But the supernatural, spiritual man actually uses that to deny himself instead of gratify his own flesh. He denies his flesh. He uses his own strength against himself. Paul speaks about beating your body with many blows. Use what you've been gifted with to deny yourself and protect those around you. Use your strength for the benefit of others, and if needs be, for your own detriment, because you're supposed to sacrifice yourself. That's what Christ did with great strength. He was whole God, but instead he didn't grasp that. Instead he said, I will die in human flesh. I will die in the likeness of sinful flesh, even though I came as God. And after all, what are men called to be? We're called to be just like Christ and conform to his image. If you're watching this and you don't think very hard, you might think this is sexist towards women, but women have wonderful gifts as well. Women have gifts of caring, of being the most beautiful things in the world, of bringing life to this planet. But what do we see the devil trying to do with women too? Trying to turn their gifts against society and against humanity and sneakily against themselves, but trying to basically make women selfish with their gifts so they can manipulate and grasp, instead of using their gifts to deny themselves and bless the kingdom of God. That's what we're seeing with the abortion epidemic now. Women should use what they have, use their voice to actually kill their unborn babies. They should use the way they look to make money on OnlyFans and basically flick off God in the process, and their fathers and their community and everybody, and just destroy society by creating this sexual economy that just thrives on sin. Yeah, women have a responsibility too. Y'all aren't without power. Ours is just more status based and physically based. Like, women's power is still notable, by the way. And it's a beautiful thing when women use their God given talents, their gifts from God, to deny themselves and bless the king. Because they get a hundredfold back anyway, just like men do. And the more godly a woman becomes, the more likely, the more inclined she is to be modest, self sacrificial, servant hearted. And the same way with a man, the more likely he is to form a shield around those who are weaker than him or lesser than him, instead of crushing those who are lesser than him. And actually, throughout human history, we've seen many men do that, crush those weaker than them. But that's not modeled for us by Jesus Christ. And as men of God, that's where we should be going. And I just want to remind you as well, as a closing point, weakness is not virtue. There's no virtue in being harmless. No, you need to be dangerous. You need to be dangerous. It's like what C.S. Lewis wrote in Narnia, like Aslan, who was like the Jesus kind of character. Is he safe? No, but he is good. As a man, you don't want to be safe. Like, you want to be able to cause damage, because you need to cause damage to evil to protect those who are innocent. To uphold virtue, you need to be able to cause harm. You need to have that steel. You need to have that metal in you. Being weak is no. But no, rather give me a man who is dangerous but is completely yielded to Christ, than a man who couldn't cause harm if he wanted to, and hey, maybe one day he will want to, but even then he couldn't. That man will manipulate, that man will double cross, that man will betray, and you think he's harmless, so he could never do that. But remember, harmlessness is not virtue. Sheathed strength is virtue. It's called meekness. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Men should be strong, but they should be merciful, they should be gracious, and they should be yielded to God. Thanks so much for watching. We'll speak to you soon.